Hello and welcome to Warsaw for this new edition of the interview on France 24. My guest today is Mikołaj Dowgielewicz, the Polish minister in charge of European affairs. Now, as Poland takes over the rotating presidency of the European Union on July 1st, Mr. Dowgielewicz will of course coordinate and organize all the meetings, will also potentially respond to some crisis. Mr. Dowgielewicz, hello and welcome to the interview on France 24.
Hello.
Now, talking about crises, all eyes are of course on Greece. There's once again fear that the debt crisis in Athens is getting out of control. EU leaders are meeting in Brussels. Are you confident that they will find the will and the means to extinguish this new fire?
Well, first of all, it's important that the Greek Parliament voted on Tuesday night in favor of the government on the motion of censure. So that's a positive fact. Now, obviously, the European Union and the IMF expect from Greece that there's a serious commitment to reform and privatization. There will be a meeting of the Eurogroup finance ministers on the 3rd of July, which will respond to the situation. I think that the summit this week, the European Council, will take stock of the situation, but I don't think that this will be the moment already to take any new decisions. I think the roadmap is clearly set. We wait for the Greek decisions, and then the Eurogroup finance ministers will take a decision in the beginning of July.
Some critics say that some EU member states were very slow to respond to this new crisis, pointing the finger at your neighbour, Germany. Would you agree with that assessment?
I wouldn't point a finger at anyone because this is a very delicate political subject. We know how much emotions are high on this topic. But I think that it is essential that the European Union and the leadership of the European Union is able to communicate effectively to the markets and more importantly perhaps to the citizens what we are doing, why we're doing this, and what is at stake. I think this is absolutely essential, and what is also essential is that we do it collectively. So this is why we say, when we speak about the role of the Polish presidency, that we want to be an integrating presidency, that we should try to make sure that we have a narrative that is a common narrative on the key issues towards the citizens.
Now, your country will take over the rotating presidency on July 1st. Now, you are not in the eurozone, not yet at least. Technically, does this pose a problem when you have to deal with such a big crisis within the eurozone?
It is, of course, a problem because there are expectations that Polish finance minister, who chairs the ECOFIN, would be responsible for providing solutions, but in fact it's the Eurogroup and the Eurogroup president who is mostly in charge. And of course we also have a troika format with the IMF and European Central Bank. But the fact that Poland is outside the Eurozone doesn't change the fact that Poland is very committed to European economic coordination. We were one of the first member states to support Van Rompuy task force when it started its work on more solid economic coordination, and we are very committed to that, and there's absolutely a role here for the presidency to mobilize leadership at the highest level to take action.
Your government is also committed to joining the Eurozone against all the odds, I should say. Now, France 24 and Gazeta Wyborcza, ahead of the Polish presidency, conducted a poll. It turns out that 53% of Polish people say they don't want to join the Eurozone. Is joining the Eurozone still a good deal for your country?
Well, first of all, Poland is committed to join the Eurozone because we voted on it in a referendum when we had a referendum on accession to the EU. But of course, it's logical that people are anxious or afraid now of this question, even when you have such a situation, crisis situation within the Eurozone. I think that for Poland to be able to seriously consider the timetable for joining the Eurozone, two conditions have to be met. First of all, the euro must be out of hospital, so that we have to be sure that...
This might take a while.
Well, it may take a while, but I hope we are on the way out from the hospital. But secondly, of course, the economic conditions in Europe have to be better, and I think that obviously Poland has to fulfill the criteria. We are now very committed to making sure that we fulfill the criteria and that our deficit and that we go down with a level of deficit, and that we also continue to keep the public debt under control. So I'm hopeful that Poland within the next couple of years will be able to fulfill the criteria.
Angela Merkel of Germany insists that the private sector should contribute to the bailout of Greece. Does that sound like a good idea, and is this feasible?
Well, I think that in a way it's inevitable that you will have some private sector involvement, but the situation is also slightly different this year, because we have already seen that the European Central Bank has been very active in support to Greece, and we know very well that the Greek assets are being slowly withdrawn from the banks in many member states, and the biggest member states, for example. So, in fact, I hope that the exposure of the biggest financial institutions in the eurozone to the Greek debt is not increasing. But on the other hand, it is essential to say that you have to be very careful, because you cannot create a situation when markets and people would get nervous. So I fully understand the position of the central bank, which is very careful on the private sector involvement. So we have to find a middle way, as always. But I think we are getting there.
Another priority of the Polish presidency is to reach out to Europe's southern neighbours. I'm thinking, of course, about the Arab revolutions. Poland has been quite active diplomatically. Your foreign minister, Mr. Sikorski, went to Benghazi to meet the Libyan rebels. The hero of Solidarność, Lech Wałęsa, went to Tunisia to try and share his experience with the new Tunisian leadership. However, Poland is not taking part in the military operation on the ground. There's a lot of pressure from the US and from your European neighbours for you to get involved. Will you get involved?
Poland is active diplomatically, as you said. We just decided this week to have a presence on the ground in Benghazi, during the diplomatic presence on the ground during the period of the presidency in the council. We are happy to help, and we are committed to help with humanitarian assistance, but most importantly, we want to contribute to the transformation and democratization phase. That's why we are active not only in Tunisia, but also increasingly in Egypt. And we want, of course, to help those countries with practical advice. It's not some highbrow ideas that count here, but really a practical advice on, for example, on trade unions, on freedom of press, how to organize first free elections, those things where we have experience that we can share. But of course we have to be very modest in this. You cannot just implant ideas from Central Europe to the Arab world, to North African countries.
But despite France's and the US calls for you to join the military effort, Poland will not go.
Poland is not going to take part in the military operation. This is not EU operation, so it's not. There is no point linking this somehow with the presidency. I think, however, that we should draw conclusions from the Libya crisis for the EU, and this is why Poland is committed to taking forward a discussion on common security and defense policy. We would very much like the EU to be equipped with civilian and military planning capability, to be able to plan EU operations in a more robust and effective way. There are many things that we can do in security and defense, and of course, Poland is in favor of deeper cooperation on security and defense in the EU.
Now, another priority, of course, is to revive the Eastern Partnership with your neighbours, Ukraine, Belarus, which is going through a deep political crisis, to say the least. What exactly do you wish to achieve during your presidency when it comes to Ukraine and Belarus?
Well, we will host in Warsaw at the end of September Eastern Partnership Summit. That will be the most important event that will take place in Poland during the presidency. I think it should be a moment of reinforcing mutual commitment. Countries, our eastern neighbors, should commit to deeper and faster reforms to become
That's certainly not the case in Belarus.
That I will come back to Belarus in a second. And that is certainly the case in Ukraine and Moldova, and this is very positive. Also Georgia, I would say. And on the other hand, I think the EU should come out with a better offer to them. I think that there is a lot we can do in trade, in mutual openness, mobility, that will be a win-win situation for the EU and for those countries. Ukraine, hopefully during the Polish presidency, will conclude its talks on the association agreement. That would be very significant. I see full mobilization in Kiev about that. I think this is very positive. Belarus is far more difficult. We just in the EU decided on Monday to impose new sanctions on Belarus because the human rights situation is very, well, is in fact deteriorating. It's people are put to prison, journalists are imprisoned, families of people imprisoned are harassed. This is very serious, and this is just not just Poland's neighborhood, but it's Europe's neighborhood. So I think that as we give more, better offer for more reforms, we should also give less if a country is doing less in fulfilling the European standards.
Mikołaj Dowgielewicz, Polish Minister in charge of European Affairs, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching this edition of The Interview from Warsaw in Poland. Let's now go back to Paris for a news update.